basically want to ask you about what you've done, see how you're doing.
We've been experiencing a number of advances in terms of taking the club atmosphere and bringing it to the masses by way of the web. And I think that this is one of the most dynamic ways to give the party, the true party atmosphere in the most real sense. To be able to reach so many people through the World Wide Web, I think is such a great advance of, technology. And I'm just happy to be a part of anything that wants to move forward and advance the music and bring the music to as many people as possible.
One of the songs I did with Carl Craig. Just by chance, I'm pulling it up. This is Drama.
It's one of the sacred grounds for the music. I mean, it's where it started.
So, Ritchie, when I mention the Detroit scene, what comes to your mind?
For 10, 15 years of my life, that's what comes to mind. It's the kind of has everything to do with who I am now and where I've come from.
The whole history of Detroit techno started, I suppose you could say, from Kevin Saunderson, Juan Atkins, and Derrick May.
I think we were like way ahead of our time, like 10, 15 years.
Juan had this vision of what he thought the future was all about, what he thought life itself should be projected as in the future. And we became friends, and it was his way of thinking, and it was really fast forward, and it was interesting, and it was something we had never seen before in our lives, man.
So we all went to high school together, me, Juan, and Derrick. Derrick learned from Juan, basically, which I think it started for him in 70, maybe 79, with a group called Cybertron. Derrick started putting out music. So for some reason, I just felt like I had to put out music too.
One of the most influential, I think, to a wider group of people at that point was the Wizard, who was on radio, and that was, otherwise known now as Jeff Mills. Jeff had a radio show 5 or 6 days a week, half an hour, 45 minutes, probably around 9 o'clock at night on WJLB, the biggest, urban station really Detroit had or has. And he was just pumping out the craziest stuff, hip-hop, Publican, and, Enemy to Derrick May to Kraftwerk.
How would you define Detroit techno sound?
Minimal, very funky, very soulful.
How do you infuse soul into machines?
You just gotta work them. You gotta work them like they've never been worked.
We live in a city that is very industrial. We have seen the decomposition of the city, and we've been able to relate that into what we've done with our music.
What about Motown? Was there any, did the fact that Motown was here?
No.
Okay.
Now, Motown, you know, I mean, any kid that's from Detroit obviously has been a part of, you know, the surroundings of Motown.
The industrial view of Motown and how to make records, and then the rebels from Motown like Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and Norman Whitfield, who were able to change the face of what Motown was as well as the face of music. And it kind of opened up our views and made our mentality broader to be able to relate to the mechanical music of Kraftwerk, or, you know, the strangeness of Visage.
We fade to gray.
And all of these influences, along with the development of house music coming out of Chicago, all had its influence on Detroit.
When this music came out, there was a club called the Music Institute, which is where most of the Detroit sound was being formed and produced, and you would hear that sound at that club.
In some ways, a poor excuse for a club, and maybe standards there. There was no bar, there was no alcohol, there was no, you know, like flashy lights. It was like a strobe light and one hell of a system. And it was just like, Derrick had a track called The Dance. And I don't know why he recorded it, why it called that, but that's what it was all about to me and to a lot of people back then. It was like going into this dark room and just losing yourself.
A culture, really, that was generated out of a black crowd and a black scene here, then got co-opted by, like, white Brits. Why do you think that happened?
The British press. I blame it all on the British press.
As fascinating as it might seem, we don't have any idea how that happened. We don't know. Of course, we had this association and this real attachment to black soul music, but we had more infatuation with what was going on over there. So when it jumped, it seemed almost like maybe we wished it, or maybe somehow we subconsciously made music more for them than for us.
Overall, it was a good thing. You know, I don't feel ripped off. I think it was just the process of evolution, more or less.
When Derrick would make a record, then I'll get excited about making a record. When Juan would make a record, we all get excited over each other, and it would be like a competition also, because we all want to have the hottest record.
And we had people coming in from France and from Japan and from Switzerland and from the UK, all coming in and doing interviews saying, wow, this is a great record, and da-da-da-da. And immediately they would go to KMS, because they have an area that they call Techno Boulevard. Right. Because at one point, KMS, Model 500, which is Juan Atkins' label, and Transmat were all in the same general area. In fact, the buildings were all kitty corner from each other.
Originally, downstairs here was the studio for Juan Atkins for Metroplex. And upstairs was my home and studio.
Right.
Now it's just my home. And downstairs is a recording studio and an office. And, you know, we've turned this whole block into, it's our block now, it's a Transmat block. We miss, I mean, KMS not there anymore, really. It's sad, you know, because we really always believed we could do something here in the city, but we've never really had the support of the community. It's just not here.
Detroit was just like the rest of the country. You know, the mainstream media and audience had no idea that, you know, they had people that were flying overseas and, you know, right in their own backyard, you know, and doing things and being recognized overseas. I mean, they had no idea of that.
We've done some amazing things, not just myself and my guys, but the underground resistance guys. Various people in Detroit have done all kinds of things.
And let's be realistic. That, you know, U.S. is still a lot of racial barriers in the U.S. And I think that there's a lot of that probably also that played a role in us not being, I guess, more popularized.
I didn't know what this music was, and eventually when I went to the record shop and found these records and then actually saw that it said Detroit on it, I was amazed because I actually thought it was from Europe. Yeah, you know, and little did I know it was in my own backyard, and that was just wow.
When I started traveling, like, for example, to the UK in like 1993, 1994, and I was meeting with all these, you know, various producers and the big name cats over there, and they were just always used to the idea of a big studio, even though they were making dance tracks just like we were, and they were trying to figure out how to make their records sound like ours. And we tried to explain, well, you know, we don't have all this big, massive, you know, 48-track, digital, high-tech, whatever.
We did this back in the day before we had all the digital stuff we have nowadays, which is over there. I guess we could show the disco gear. That's what this was done on over there. The disco gear.
In Detroit, it was real hands-on. It was, in a lot of ways, very low-tech. And it was really about grabbing the idea, capturing it, and then just moving on, you know, and trying never to look back.
The culture of this music is very DJ orientated. It's the culture is about putting two records together, but making something new, experimenting with it, using effectors, using whatever, as well as the majority of the music that's being made in techno and drum and bass and et cetera, is all music that is created and fueled by DJs or people who have a DJ mentality.
One of the Detroit secrets about this record and many other records is the fact that this record could be played on a different pitch by electro DJs in Detroit. Sped up on 45, it works in an electro DJ set. That's a Detroit phenomenon that's unique only to Detroit, pretty much.
Because of the elements from which the music developed, it kind of added its own identity to it. And a part of that was being limited on equipment and limited on big studio. I mean, I don't have a big major studio now.
When you put the needle on the record for a typical Detroit record and another techno record or another record from outside, that's what kind of grabbed you. You know, it had, I guess part of the humanity was still left in there. It hadn't been too computerized.
This record is a worldwide phenomenon. It's actually one of the bigger and biggest 12 inches that has come out of Detroit in a while. Well, the EP is called The Knights of the Jaguar EP on Underground Resistance, produced by Mad Mike and Rolando.
There's some sort of fight going on with Underground Resistance and Sony Music right now. Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, there's actually been a trance cover version of the song that we're listening to at the moment, which was played note by note by some German producers, I'm told. And there wasn't an agreement to actually pursue that.
And what's UR's stance on the whole Jaguar track versus Sony?
We just want to say to all you motherfuckers out there, Don't fake the funk, and it's not right to steal soul. You know, it's bullshit. That's our stand.
But technically, they can do it. But it's a diss. And it also says, basically that, y'all, we ain't coming to y'all, we ain't gonna sign y'all, we don't want y'all, none of y'all. And that's just the way it is. And that's a hard, real reality that we all must face. That if we're gonna continue to make this music and do what we do, we will simply be blueprints and we will simply lay down new roads for others to travel on. Because they're not gonna let us ride the roads. They'll let us build the roads, but we ain't gonna travel those roads. Not unless we build our own cars and make our own way.
Detroit techno, honestly, I don't believe has a sound any longer. I think Detroit techno is just modern music, and it's been able to grow past what was considered electro or considered technology music. It's like modern blues or modern soul.
All the Detroit producers, all the techno DJs from Detroit, they all played house as well as techno.
Right. House music is just blown up big time, and we still sell a lot of techno, but primarily we're concentrating on house music.
Unfortunately, a lot of the younger producers that are coming into the scene view techno as being a European thing. They're looking at the Prodigies, the Fatboy Slims, Crystal Method, all these various groups and influences that come from the European side of things. And then they say, okay, wow, I want to try to incorporate what I'm doing to sound like that, which I have no problem with, but the thing that gets lost is the Detroit element.
Years ago, you had one big party, everybody was happy. Now, you got the kids want to get their little piece of the pie, and it's fine, but, you know, there's been, you know, altercations on account of that, and it's just gotten crazy over the years.
When it first started, parties were nice and cheap, and it was all about the love of music, the love of people. Nowadays, it's all about making money.
When I started, it was the majority were the white suburban kids, but now, you know, there's more of you know, the African Americans and the Hispanic Americans that come, but they don't really come for the drugs as what most everybody wants to think, but they come to hear the DJs, they come to hear the music.
I almost feel like we're at the point now where it's like the prologue slowly like coming to an end and the first act's really about to begin, and that's what we're going to see over in the next couple of years. There's 3 or 4 places that have opened in the last few months alone, and several more to come.
Detroit is one of the leading cities in America for electronic dance music. I think that Detroit is going to always be checked for reference to what is going on at the moment.
I think the biggest thing that's finally happened in Detroit, and I think it's all cities need to go through this, is there's now developed, there's an intelligent dance music crowd. There's people that have, you know, went through the whole raver thing, you know, the parties and everything when they were younger, and they still want to be into the music. They still want to go out and dance. It's still their passion, but they want to do it at a place where they can go and drink and at a nightclub.
Half the reason we get the attention that we do is because we are the techno club in Detroit, which means for that reason alone, all eyes are on us, simply because of the work that people did before us. You know, what these people have done with the music over these years and the way it's branched out across the world, that sort of instantaneously created some sort of curiosity. Then what must the club be like that does that in Detroit? And so it's what we try and live up to.
The internet is the biggest phenomenon concerning techno. That's the worldwide force and phenomenon behind most of electronic music and dance music as we know today.
As a music journalist, who are the people that are making waves in Detroit right now that you think are special?
Carl Craig, without a doubt. Carl is the only genius I know. And what he's done just in the past year, you've seen him make a major push in not just, you know, taking the music further with his Interzone Orchestra, honestly trying new things and succeeding and taking it all over the world.
He's like helping organize a big electronic musical festival in May at Hart Plaza in Detroit, and I'm really excited to see what goes in with that.
I'm just a student of all styles because I try to keep my mind as open as possible. You know, there's some things I can't stand, whether it's country, western, or something. But you know, there's a lot still to be learned within that. You know, whether it's that or music that they'll play at a Greek strip club or something.
I'll always be Detroit. I mean, you can take the boy out of Detroit, but you can't take Detroit out of the boy. So you know what I mean? I'm gonna always be a Detroit boy.
And that's the basics of what little bit I had of the song.